Free Sudan? Really? Let me ask you, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? Sudan isn't Ukraine or Gaza, it's not a foreign invasion, it's a civil war. But the level of violence is terrifying. Over 1 million people have already died, many hacked to death, starved, or sold as slaves. Sudan gained independence in 1956 after kicking out the British. Then came President Bashir, an absolute tyrant who ruled Sudan for 30 years. In 2019, he was overthrown by 2 of his own generals. Later, those 2 turned on each other. Leading the 2 armed groups fighting today, the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces. Wars cost money. Each side controls gold mines and other resources, and both receive support from foreign powers. For a while, Chinese companies helped Sudan build dams, mines, and other infrastructures, investing billions. The idea was that wealth might bring peace and progress. Instead, when both sides got rich, you know what happened now. For a sovereign country with 2 separate armies, such a system can only end in disaster. International mediation failed because neither side would give up power or money. Eventually, they went to war. The civil war began on April 15, 2023. It's basically a low-budget version of the Russian-Ukraine war. Many of the same weapons, missiles, artillery, drones appeared here, though in smaller numbers. Most fighting is done with the old Soviet rifles and machetes. The RSF, made up of former militias, excels at urban warfare. The regular army has air power and heavy weapons. In the capital of 7 million people, the 2 sides shell each other with artillery, airstrikes, and machine guns. When ammo runs out, they fight with blades. It's a brutal, primitive stalemate. After the war began, almost all Chinese nationals evacuated. China's projects were abundant, huge economic losses, respected Sudan's sovereignty. But who's funding this war? One side gets support from Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt, and the other side from the UAE, Iran, and Russia's Wagner Group. Whenever one side starts losing, their backers send more weapons. The international community doesn't really want this war to end. Wagner even controls several Sudanese gold mines. After the war began, they backed the RSF. To make things wilder, Ukrainian special forces reportedly tracked Wagner to Africa and attacked their gold mines to hurt Russia's finances. The number of days in Sudan is unknown. The country is so chaotic that even internet signals are gone. That's why you rarely see videos and there are no journalists left there. I know you might wonder, if heavy weapons are limited, how could so many people die? You probably don't know much about Africa. I've been there many times. People there can be unbelievably wild. Remember the Rwanda genocide 31 years ago? Most of the killing was done with machetes. About 1 million people slaughtered in just 3 months. Sudan's war has lasted 2 years. Guns for 2 years versus machetes for 3 months. You tell me, which kills more? Now think of the heat in Sudan. With so many dead and no way to bury them, disease spreads fast. Even so, many African countries maintain incredibly high birth rates. Though infant mortality is equally high, children there are literally born into hell. Humanitarian aid can't get in, or it's stolen by warlords. The world has mostly stopped caring. It said over 10 million Sudanese have been displaced. About 80% of hospitals are closed and the rest lack doctors or medicine. Minor illnesses turn fatal. Just days ago, the world was shocked by a massacre at a maternity hospital, where RSF fighters killed 400 to 500 pregnant women. Another reason this war is so brutal is that most African countries have weak national identity. One country might contain dozens of tribes and religious groups that don't even see each other as the same people. When one group captures another, massacres follow. A few days ago, RSF forces took a city and carried out another mass killing, confirmed by satellite photos from AFP. That's why people only recently started talking about Sudan, even though the war's been going for 2 years. In chaotic times, human life is worth less than a dog's in peace. So why does the war keep going? Why don't people rise up or refuse to fight? Because they can't. When you live in a war zone, your only choice is to obey whoever controls your area. Militias control gold mines and smuggling routes. They offer jobs and food. The regular army controls the government and pays salaries. For many young men, joining a side is the only way to survive. Refuse and you might get looted or killed. Both sides spread propaganda. The army calls the RSF barbaric bandits. The RSF calls the army corrupt elites. With communications cut, civilians only hear what their rulers want them to hear. When family loses a son in battle, grief turns into loyalty and hatred. Fear and revenge become the base recruitment tools. The deeper reason is habit. Since 1956, Sudan has had over 10 coups. For many of them, conflict and military rule are all they've ever known. Chaos becomes normal, some even rely on it, believing that a powerful army at least provides a little safety, or that if their side wins, they'll share the rewards later. So the so-called support of the people is really a survival strategy, like a drowning person grabbing at anything that floats. It's not about right or wrong, it's about staying alive. Everyone is both victim and accomplice. Why does the international community ignore Sudan's tragedy? The answer is very simple. It has no strategic value. Sudan isn't Ukraine. It's not near little, not a global grain supplier. It's not Gaza. It doesn't affect Middle Eastern oil or Western capital. It used to have resources, but 90% of them went to South Sudan after the split in 2011. For those major powers, Sudan's outcome doesn't matter. Intervention would cost for more than it's worth. And morally, it's a maze. There's no good side, both are killers and warlords. Supporting either makes you complicit. The UN can call for peace, but has no real leverage. Peacekeeping costs money, and after the ceasefire, who rebuilds the country? Who enforces peace? Weapons come from everywhere. The UAE, Iran, Egypt, Turkey turn this into a classic proxy war that's nearly impossible to resolve. And finally, media fatigue. The wars in Ukraine and Gaza have drained the world's empathy. Disasters have an inflection effect. Each new one must be more shocking to get noticed. There's also race. Ukraine is full of white people. Sudan isn't. Western media simply doesn't care as much about black lives. It's just the reality. So when people post Free Sudan online, which side you support for? Sadly, not just for Sudan, but the whole world, peace might be the most expensive luxury. Follow me an Eastern perspective to see the world.